Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Wondergoal, the soccer betting podcast from the Action Network. My name is Michael Leboff, and joining me for this episode and all the Euro 2024 episodes coming our way is BJ Cunningham and a new voice on the pod for the Euros, Sam Ingram, coming our way via Woking in England by way of Plymouth. Sam, welcome to Wondergoal. We're excited to have you. Can you introduce yourselves to our listeners and what you're into, who you root for, all that stuff, and then we'll get right into our Euro 2024 futures preview.
Yeah, hello everyone, and thank you very much for having me. I'm very much excited for the summer and the tournament ahead. I am the football editor at a platform called Betting Expert, and I've been betting in a full-time capacity for a number of years now. So this is the first Euros actually that I won't be attending in quite a long time in person, but I've obviously got a decent agent who is somehow locked in a temporary loan deal to Action Network with no obligation to buy. So you guys can have a real look at me over the summer. Yeah, Michael mentioned there, I'm originally from Plymouth, so I'm a Plymouth Argyle fan of the Championship, of course, in England. Just got Wayne Rooney in as head coach, so I'm not too sure how next season's going to go. But yeah, overall, just happy to be here, really, and keen to get stuck into some bets.
All right, yeah, let's do that. Let's get right into it. So this is Euro 2024. We're gonna look at we'll go group by group, give out a bunch of futures in each group. We're gonna start though with our favorite outrights. It's a 24 team tournament. It's a little convoluted. This is the third iteration of this version of it, where we have 24 teams split into 6 groups of 4, and then you get the top 2 teams in each of those groups plus the 4 best third place teams go into the round of 16. So only 8 teams get eliminated. With that all in mind, let's just run real quick through the outright odds. England is your betting favorite at the moment. They are 3-1. France right behind them at 4-1. Germany plus 550. Portugal and Spain are both 8-1. These odds, of course, are from our friends over at Bet365. Italy's next up. They are the defending champions. They're 14-1. Belgium and the Netherlands are at 16. Then we got a big jump to Croatia, Denmark at 40. Turkey is 50-1. Switzerland coming in at 66-1. Serbia, Austria, Hungary at 80-1. Scotland, Ukraine at 100-1. Czech Republic 150-1. So is Poland. Romania 200-1. Slovenia 250-1. And then we got the true outsiders. Albania, Georgia, and Slovakia are all 500-1. All right, BJ. Right now, if you're looking at this board, just the outright board, what is your favorite bet that you can pluck from here?
Well, Michael, these type of international tournaments, you can qualify this for the World Cup or even the Euros. Typically, the favorites win these. We've had a couple instances. Italy was 11-1 at the last Euros. Obviously, the big story is Greece in 2004 with their magical run as a huge long shot. So you typically want to have somebody around the top of the board here. And the team that I really like is Germany at plus 550, your tournament host. So Germany's had 2 international tournaments, the last Euros and the World Cup, that have not gone well. Let's just say that. It's been a complete disaster from their vantage point. They got knocked out in the round of 16 by England. And if you remember that last Euros, there was a moment where they were going home from that group of death, where they needed to score against Hungary. Then at the last World Cup, they obviously got knocked out at the group stage. But a lot has changed. They are now bringing in Julian Nagelsmann, who for me is the best tactical manager in this entire tournament. He was incredibly successful at Bayern. The reason he got sacked was more having to do with disagreements with the board than his actual managerial skills. What I love about him is he has the ability to adapt for a tournament like this. He'll use so many different build-up structures, from a 2-3 to a 3-2 to a 3-1-6, depending on whoever the opponent is. They have unbelievable attacking players, from Musiala to Florian Wirtz, who's the Bundesliga Player of the Year, Kai Havertz, who's outstanding at playing the false 9 role and dropping deep in build-up, Leroy Sané, who's got electric pace, Gundogan, who's an incredible box crasher. They have everything in terms of attack. But what's really improved from Germany, as opposed to tournaments past, is their defense is rock solid, because Nagelsmann, unlike Hansi Flick, is not the type of manager that's just going to all-out press and play a high line and leave his defense really exposed. Through a few, obviously Germany didn't go through the qualifying process, so they've played 6 friendlies under Nagelsmann. The last 2 have been against the Netherlands and France. In those 2 matches, they were playing more of a 4-4-2 mid-block or a 4-2-4, which is much better for a tournament like this. And what that does also is if they decide to press from that, Rudiger and Jonathan Tah is an incredible center back pairing because they're so good, not only from building out of the back, from winning duels, but winning aerial duels. They've won over 68% of their aerial duels over the last few seasons at the club level. So Germany has absolutely everything. They have the manager, they have a defense, they have an offense, they have a great tactical plan, but they also have the path. And when you're betting outrights, you have to look at what's the most likely path for all of these teams. If England and France both win their groups, which they should because they're pretty heavy favorites, they are going to be on the same side of the bracket. Germany wins their group, they're going to be alone at the top half of the bracket with the most likely matchup against Spain in the quarterfinals, who they outplayed at the World Cup. And then at worst, they're going to face Portugal, who we'll get to later in this program that I'm pretty out on. I think that potentially they could go home early. So the path for Germany is outstanding. And we've seen also in January, and for a couple other of these international tournaments, both the Asian Cup and the Africa Cup of Nations, both of the host nations won. Home field advantage is huge in these type of tournaments. So with home field advantage, the path, the manager, and having all of the talent. Now, they're not as talented as France or England, but having all of those, I think they should be closer to 4-1, closer to France and England as being a three-way tie for favorites. So I really like Germany at plus 550.
And Sam, I know you're in agreement with BJ. So what do you want to add on to there about why you like Germany here at this price?
Yeah, I promise I've not just copied BJ.
No.
I
We should
do
have gone to you first, honestly.
Yeah.
Should have.
Yeah.
No, I do fancy Germany at plus 550. There's not really much I can add on to that. I think BJ's covered most of it. But yeah, just to follow on from being at home really shouldn't be overlooked. So at Betting Expert, we've produced a betting guide for the summer. And I was looking at that before coming on, and that states that home field advantage in the Euros across the entire history of the European Championships has been worth a net gain of plus 0.45 goal difference per match to the hosts. So that's interesting, and that's worth noting down. And I suppose maybe a reason to not back, if you're looking for a reason to not back Germany, it's probably due to their lack of competitive fixtures since the World Cup. So they haven't played any as hosts of the Euros, meaning their last competitive fixture was against Costa Rica in the World Cup, a competition in which they were very, very poor. But BJ also mentioned that in March they played France, beat them 2-0, Netherlands beat them 2-1. So I suppose on the other side of it, you could argue that their friendlies have been of a standard that is maybe better than some of the European Championship qualifying routes. So yeah, I do like them. I was impressed, really impressed against France. BJ's gone through pretty much all of the team, but they've got Toni Kroos in midfield. This is going to be his last tournament, so maybe the squad's going to want to get one over the line for their departing teammate. This will be his last tournament in professional football. Yeah, Jonathan Tah, Antonio Rudiger in front of Manuel Neuer. That's a solid spine. And you got Nicholas Füllkrug as well up top, who I think he might be playing as a deputy to Kai Havertz, but that's a really handy plan B option. That's really effective if maybe you're in the knockout stages and you're looking for a goal later on. You need to launch balls into the box. So yeah, for all of those reasons and everything that BJ touched on, I like Germany at plus 550.
Yep. And we will, preach patience. Obviously, Sam comes from England, so he's used to decimal odds, but already right off the bat, doing a really good job with the American money line system. I'm going to take a shot on the Netherlands at 16-1, and it comes down to the path more than anything. Likely going to finish second in Group D, and that could end up being the best spot for anybody finishing second place, right? Like, you look at their path would likely. You're playing maybe like that Group E is so soft is what I'm saying, right? Finishing behind Belgium. I don't know what is it going to be, Romania, whoever's going to finish behind Belgium in that group. It's going to be easy. So I think that the Netherlands path is there. I liked what I saw out of them on the World Cup. I know we're getting a change of manager here to former Everton boss Ronald Koeman. But this team has the upside. They've obviously got a ton of attacking talent. The center of the defense should be fine. So it's more about the path than anything else with the Dutch for me. It's 16-1. I think the number's probably just a shade too long. And there's a couple teams I think in that range you can make an argument for. And if you look at the path for them versus Belgium or even Italy, like I would much rather take a stroll with the Dutch with the orange. as my favorite outright, though I do think that if I were to had to pick a favorite, I would go with you guys on Germany. It does seem like that this is all setting up pretty nicely for them. Coming out of Group A, which is not going to be all that competitive, and then from there, as BJ said, the path opens up for them as well. Okay, let's go into group by group, right? We'll start with Group A. You guys made your thoughts pretty clear on Germany. They are minus 300 odds on to win Group A. They're joined by Scotland, Hungary, and the Swiss. Switzerland is the second favorite, plus 550 to win the group. Hungary at 8-1. They are pretty fancied for like as a sleeper team. And then Scotland at 11-1. BJ, what do you have here for Group A?
Yeah, so I have two bets. Number one is going to be dual forecast, which meaning you can either finish can happen first or second. Germany and Switzerland plus 125. I won't go into Germany after we already talked about that. But Switzerland is a team I really like. I think that people have maybe just, I don't know if they've gotten tired of them or the market's gotten a little tired of them, because you can essentially just like copy and paste their roster from previous Euros, the World Cup to now, right? Like it's the same core. It's still Granit Xhaka, Akanji, Schär, even Shaqiri, even though he's playing in MLS, is going to play on the right. Ruben Vargas on the left. There's a question mark of who's actually going to be up top. But if you go through Switzerland numbers in qualifying, yes, they were in a very easy group. They finished second to Romania, but they had a +2 expected goal differential per 90 minutes. So at some level, you have to say, okay, you can discredit that because they did have an easy group, but you can only play who's in front of you, right? And putting up that impressive of numbers definitely raises some eyebrows. And I think at the international level, because these teams don't train as often together as the club teams do, having that continuity and that same core is incredibly valuable. And Switzerland has that, even through qualifying. I mean, when their two matches against Romania, they didn't get results in them, but I mean, they created close to 5 expected goals in those two matches, just could not put the ball in the back of the net. They have Granit Xhaka, who is in the form of his life for Leverkusen this season, conducting their entire attack. Like I said, a very solid center back pairing with Fabian Schär, Elvedi, or Akanji. They have potentially I would say one of the best goalkeepers in this tournament, whether they start Gregor Cabal or Jan Sommer. And the system that they're playing under Yakin has been so good for so long. And they're really good at breaking down low blocks. They use a lot of passing triangles in the half spaces. They wrecked Romania with that. They're being really good at breaking down low blocks is crucial in this tournament, in this group especially, because they're going to play 2 of them in their first 2 matches. So I really like Switzerland and Germany plus 125. I think they're a clear level above Hungary and Scotland. And I also like Hungary to finish bottom of this group at plus 160. Hungary, the problem with them is that throughout qualifying, they were in an even or positive game state pretty much throughout all of it. So it's easy to sit in a 5-3-2 low block and play passively and play in transition when you're always either tied or leading. But the second that they're actually losing a match and they have to press, they're terrible in transition defense. They're one of the worst set piece defenses in this entire tournament. So you're taking away, essentially, when you have to play Scotland. Those are 2 things that Scotland actually does well. So I like Hungary to finish bottom at plus 160. Their numbers during qualifying really weren't that good. They got outplayed in both matches by Serbia, even though they won both of them. So those are my 2 bets for Group A.
Yeah, we talked a lot. I mean, our first episodes on this podcast were right ahead of Euro 2020, and we talked a lot about, and I did especially Turkey, and they became pretty trendy sleeper and fell flat on your face. I think you've kind of identified it, Hungary, as that team that I think a lot of people will back and could come up short and knock a lot of people out of pools in terms of like trying to pick a sleeper. I'm gonna build a dual forecast round robin throughout the show as part of how I'll be betting this. And for me, it's Germany and Scotland. And I know, Sam, you're going to be on an opposite trajectory here with the Scots. But what I like about them is in these tournament settings, in these tournament environments, being hard to beat is crucial. And I think that Scotland is set up to do that. And I hate the fact that they're playing Germany right out the gates. And it's going to be a cauldron and a brutal atmosphere in that standalone game on the opening night of the tournament. So perhaps you can sit and wait for them to get absolutely worked by Germany and then back them even at a better number. But I'm going to go for it here at plus 430. I think that in the middle of the park, they should be okay with the Billy Gilmores of the world, Scott McTominay as their kind of maverick, and then John McGinn as well as like a creative force. I don't see too many like glaring issues outside of the injuries on the with like Nathan Patterson and missing out. So like they're on their third choice out there on the wing back, but I think that there's enough depth here, which is something you don't really hear, I guess, from Scotland to cover those holes. So I actually like the Scots to finish second. I just don't think that the rest of the group is good enough to scare me off of them. I think, as you said, BJ, maybe I'm kind of just getting tired of the whole set it and forget it nature of Switzerland, which is, yeah, they'll just go to sleep, wake up in the round of 16, and we'll find them there. One win and two draws or something like that. Win, draw, loss. So maybe I'm just getting tired of that. But I have a little more faith in the Scottish ceiling than I guess maybe the market and you, Sam.
Yeah, this is why I love betting, really, because I completely disagree with both of you, but that's fine. I've got Scotland not to qualify at plus 100, or would you call that evens as well? Or
Yep, either way.
Yep.
evens?
That's even money. Yep.
We'll go with even money. So I like Hungary more so than I like Scotland. For me, they've got all the tools to cause problems, and we saw as much in both recent victories versus England. 1-0 in Hungary and beat us 4-0 at Wembley, which doesn't happen. Also beat Germany not long ago in the Nations League. They're pretty robust at the back, and I feel like they're equally capable and brave enough to progress through the thirds, and that's what you need in a major tournament. You need that bravery when it really matters, and they were unbeaten in all 8 qualifying games. They hadn't lost the previous 14 outings before losing against Ireland a couple of days ago, which was unlucky. I'm not sold on Hungary pipping Switzerland to second, considering how well-rounded the Swiss squad feels. You got Shah, Akanji, Xhaka, Okafor, Shaqiri, all, this is a decent side packed with elite level experience and quality. So for me, the question was, how do you get Hungary on side when Switzerland are so close in terms of quality and likely points total? So in the end, all fingers pointed to Scotland struggling to impose themselves in a pretty tough group. And there's plus 110 available for the Scots to finish last, and even money for them not to qualify, which means they can finish third and this still wins. And four out of the 6 are the best third place teams will qualify for round of 16. So Lyndon Dykes was injured in training maybe like a week or so ago. Aaron Hickey is out. Ben Doak left camp. He offered like a wild card spark on the wing, and so they've lost that focal point up top. And I'm not sure if the likes of Che Adams is going to cut it at a major tournament against Hungary, Switzerland, Germany. They're going to need a lot of help from the likes of Scott McTominay and John McGinn in midfield. If those two have a busy, active tournament, if they really turn up, then we might well see Scotland progress. If they don't, if they're a little quiet in midfield, and the 3 nations I mentioned can keep them quiet, then I fear for Scotland. So even money that Scotland to finish 4th or 3rd, and be one of the 2 worst third place teams and not qualify for the knockout stages. I thought that was not a bad price.
But I will say, to add on to what Sam is saying, what I will say, I think he's right in the fact that I think that Group A and Group E are your most likely groups to not get a third place team through. Because if you look through all the groups, which we'll get to, there's a pretty clear bottom team that everybody's going to have a win, hopefully have a win against. So if you're betting a team not to advance, whether it be Hungary, whether it be Scotland, I think Group A is one of those groups that potentially the third place team's not going to go through.
Okay, let's move on. Group B, which is I think you can make an argument for the 2 groups of death, maybe a tier 1 group of death, and this would be this one. Spain is the odds-on favorite to win the group at -125. They are followed by Italy, the defending champs, at 2-1. Croatia plus 450. Albania is the clear bottom feeder here at 25-1. BJ, quick before we get into this, and as we were looking through this, and I had a good laugh thinking about it. Do you remember who was given the golden ball at Euro 2020?
I do. It was Dunarama.
Yeah, crazy.
I think he was like 100-1.
Yeah, it was. I will get into player features at the end too, but just something to keep in mind that hey, we've seen a goalkeeper do it.
Right.
Is this one as straightforward as it looks, BJ, with Spain? I like the Spain-Italy dual forecast as part of that round robin. I think that Croatia's the concerns about the age, and we just had this conversation before the previous World Cup. Like, we're like, okay, this is it. They can't quite do it again. There's no way. And then they did it again, and it was sensational to watch. But it was not just like the age profile, but it's how they go about winning games that was also, it felt unsustainable. So is this finally the year where we can say, all right, you can feel confident betting against this Croatian team with the way the group sets up. So I like Spain, Italy plus 230.
Yeah, I agree. So I'm gonna go Croatia in a different aspect. So like them under 5.5 goals for the tournament at minus 125. So forever, for at least, going back to at least the 2018 World Cup, the talk of Croatia has always been their midfield and how they have an advantage over everybody with Modric, Kovacic, and Brozovic. Well, if you look at those three guys now, Brozovic is over in the Saudi Pro League. Modric is now 37. He's still playing fine, but he's 37. And Kovacic really, I didn't think was that great for Manchester City this season. And the problems that exist for Croatia, they're still a very solid defensive team. Like they will man mark you and they will come at you and they will cause a lot of problems because their midfield is still pretty decent at defending and they have a pretty good back line. But when they get to the final third, that's where things tend to break down. They don't have any wingers that can beat you in 1v1 situations. Up top, it's going to be Kramaric or Budimir, who are both 32 years old and had very average numbers at the club level. During qualifying, they played a pretty difficult group there with Turkey and Wales. The 4 matches against those two teams, they only created 5.2 expected goals, and then they kind of ran the score up against Armenia and Latvia. But the problem with them is that they struggle to play through the middle of the pitch. So they get the ball out wide, and either it ends with a cross or a shot from outside the box. Well, they were 12th in cross completion rate and 21st in aerial duel win rate. So they don't really have somebody in the box who can get on the end of those balls and win those aerial duels. And they're going to play 3 really good defensive teams. Spain, for all of their problems, and we'll get to them defending in transition. Croatia's not a team that can really beat you in transition. Italy's a very solid defensive team as well. And even Albania, they're going to be playing a very, very low defensive block. And even if they overperformed, they still only allowed 4 goals during qualifying and under 1 expected goal per 90 minutes. So it's 3 very tough defensive sides that they're going to face. And their prospects of getting deep in this tournament, Michael, I mean, I think that just all the magic and the energy has run out for them. Unless they get there, which they did in the World Cup, just on sheer will, effort, and alligator blood, I don't see how they're going to make it this deep into the tournament with how weak this attack is. So I only had them projected for 2.9 goals in their 3 group stage matches. So even if they get through in 3rd place, they're going to have to play one of the group winners. So I mean, it's tough for me to see how they're actually getting to 6 goals in this tournament unless they somehow make a deep run.
Yeah, it's funny too that we're now 4 years removed from Italy, or 3 years, I guess technically, since with Italy winning, and it's almost their prospects of the tournament and going on a deep run. It feels the same exact kind of narrative as it was before the last one. Nobody's really talking about them. They're sitting around, in the double digits in terms of odds, and I don't think they're going to have too many friends in the betting market, Sam. But they're quietly, I think, very solidly the 2nd best team in this group. And I don't think I think this group, it looks more straightforward than the group of death label will make it. But what do you have on your thoughts for Group B? What's your favorite bet here?
My favorite bet here, like BJ, I'm sticking with a pick in the goals market. Alvaro Morata, top La Liga scorer, plus 600. So he's going to be up top for 4th favorite Spain. Do you have Marmite in the States? Is that a thing for you? Like spread on toast and stuff?
Like Vegemite is like a Vegemite kind of thing. We don't, but we know what it is.
Right. Yep. So Alvaro Morata is Marmite. Like people either love him or hate him, and there's
we love him on this show.
We love him. That's a wonderful analogy.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. He's one of those strikers where when he's through on goal, you don't really fancy him, and you expect him to mess up somehow, or you expect the keeper to like smother the ball at his feet. And I know I'm not really selling this, but he's going to be down the middle of a Spanish team littered with top level creative outlets, and they're going to provide the opportunities for Morata, and it's just a case of him needing to put the ball in the back of the net. So if you look at his season in Spain, just gone. Morata's got 15 goals from 13.78 XG in La Liga for Atletico Madrid. He scored 5 goals in 8 Champions League starts. So he's had a good season. Not unbelievable, but 20 plus goals at that level is not to be sniffed at. And he'll be coming here. He'll be heading to Germany, fancying his chances of getting on the score sheet in that team. And in the betting, if you have a look at what we've got there, we've got Jude Bellingham favourite at plus 300 now. I'm not too sure about that. I can see him maybe playing a deeper role next to Declan Rice, but I'm also not too sure about whether that's going to happen, because there's a lot of question marks that Southgate needs to get his head around there. Like, are we going to play Conor Gallagher? Or are we going to go for Adam Wharton or Kobe Mainoo? So I'm not too sure about that, but I don't think Jude Bellingham is going to get your 4, 5, 6 goals at this tournament. And then we've got Morata at plus 600, Dovbyk at plus 700. Griezmann at plus 800. And for me, I just think Morata stands out because Dovbyk, I don't think Ukraine's going to do enough for him. I think he's going to score a couple goals. We'll get onto that later, but I don't think they're going to do enough to get him 4, 5, 6 goals. And Griezmann, obviously, the goals aren't really shared around in that French team. So yeah, at plus 600, Morata really stood out for me in that Spanish team because he is going to get opportunities. We just need him to take them.
We have a big affinity for Alvaro Morata on this podcast, Sam. We bet him at the last Euros at the World Cup to win the Golden Boot. The last Euros was particularly hilarious because, as you mentioned, he has a finishing problem in front of net. 3 goals off 4.5 expected. That was second to Ronaldo at the last Euros. And even if, for people who remember that, it was some of the most painful just moments in front of net where he would just miss actual sitters. So we love him on this podcast to death. We love guys typically who will either have like high XG and can't finish because usually they're undervalued in the betting market. Somebody like you mentioned with Alvaro Morata. So for those of you who have been listening for a long time, yes, we're rolling it back again at this tournament.
Yeah, there'll be a lot more Alvaro Morata talk towards the end of the show. All right, Group C, the inflection point here for you, Sam. We're going to talk about England's group. They are minus 250 to win it, ahead of Denmark, who are 4-1, Serbia 8-1, and Slovenia 10-1. We'll get into the bets, but as an Englishman, your general thoughts here. Is football finally coming home in 2024?
In a word, Michael, no, I don't. No, I don't think it is. Like most English football fans, I'm not too sure how we're favourites. If you look at maybe it from an individual player basis, we are stacked in forward areas, and I get it, Kane, Foden, Saka, etc. along that front line, and we've got players like Cole Palmer, who you probably wouldn't spring to mind, but he's been carrying Chelsea throughout the Premier League this season. So we've got a lot of talent, but in terms of the betting, in terms of being favourites, I just can't see it, to be honest, and that will lead on to my pick in this group, and it's England's stage of elimination at the semi-final stage at plus 333. So I feel like a bit of a scumbag, to be honest, offering this up as a selection, almost as if I'm turning my back on my nation. But I suppose we're on an American podcast, so hopefully this doesn't get back to anyone. I do back England to beat most teams. I really do. Like I said, we got the players to do so. Southgate's created a squad. It's the best squad harmony I've ever seen at international level for England. We've got match winners throughout the team. Cole Palmer, like I said. Players that are going to be littered on the bench that can come on and really change games. Foden, Saka, Harry Kane, Jude Bellingham. Declan Rice has been a catalyst for Arsenal's Premier League title push. The defense is a little shaky. I've just seen a tweet before coming onto the podcast that Harry Maguire and Jared Branthwaite will miss out on being on the plane for England. So it's going to be Stones at centre-back with one of Dunk, Gahey and Gomez in beside him. And I've always thought Stones at centre-back needs someone beside him like a Maguire, like someone with a bit of experience. And now Stones may be in that role with one of the younger lads or Lewis Dunk, who has the experience but hasn't flattered to deceive in an England shirt. So I'm not so sure about us defensively. I think Stones is brilliant, but that dynamic at centre-back, it worries me a little. And when I look at France, who England will likely face in the semi-final if all goes to plan, I'm instantly a bit shook, to be honest. They're stacked all over the park. Mbappe, Griezmann, obviously, I think they'll run rings around us, around that back four, and there's enough at the back to keep Kane and company quiet on their day too. And if all goes well for these nations and they're in the semi-finals, we've basically got a plus 3-3-3 on France getting the better of the two on the day. And at that price, I think it might be worth a few pennies. The two met in the World Cup in the quarterfinal in 2022, and France had too much for us then. Tchouameni from about 35 yards out, and Giroud to win the game with 10 or so minutes left, followed by Kane scoring a penalty 5 minutes later. So yeah, I suppose even if a nation outboxes France on route to the semi-final and faces England in the semis, then I also wouldn't be too surprised to see England fall out on penalties or fail to turn up. But yeah, if given the choice to back England as favourites for the competition at plus 300 or take the price here on a semi-final exit, I think I'll be much more comfortable with the latter.
Sam, I have a question for you, because that kind of shocked me when you said Harry Maguire wasn't going to be there, and I just saw it's because of injury. Do you think Mark Gahey starts next to Stones?
Potentially, yeah. I wouldn't start Lewis Dunk. I really don't think he's up to it at international level. And Joe Gomez, yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not sure if Southgate's having him at centre back over Gahey. So Stones and Gahey centre back partnership. Yeah, it's not awful. It's better than a lot of teams, but I'm just not sold on it.
Yeah, I know Gahey played a couple matches during qualifying alongside he was alongside Maguire and Stones as well. So I guess that would make sense. But here's one of
long as well.
Gahey. Yeah, one of my bets kind of leads into the makeup of the England squad as well, and it's going to be Jude Bellingham under 2.5 goals for the tournament at minus 163. So like you mentioned, Sam, he's going to be playing much of a deeper role with England, I think, right? Yeah. Unless they decide to play somebody alongside Rice and play Bellingham more as a 10, which if you have somebody like Foden or Palmer that's able to play that role, I think it would kind of puzzle me why you would leave those guys on the bench, but who knows? And if I feel like I know Southgate like I do, is he's going to value control over anything else rather than, potentially playing Trent alongside Declan Rice as more of a midfield role. So Bellingham for Real Madrid this season played more as that number 10 or a box crashing striker because they didn't really have a striker or played without it for most of the season. He obviously scored 23 goals. He was incredible, but that was also off 14 expected, and he really was only getting 2.4 shots per 90. With England, at the last World Cup, he averaged 1.0 shots per 90. During qualifying, he averaged 1.17 shots per 90. If he's going to play much of a deeper role, he's not going to be the focal point of the attack. And if you're only getting about a shot per 90, that shot's going to have to be incredibly good to actually get to 3 goals. And even if England goes deep into this tournament, the focal point of the attack is Foden, Kane, Saka, and even hopefully Palmer if he plays as well. So I think 2.5 is incredibly high, and I think it's made more of a price on what Bellingham did at the club level for Real Madrid. Another bet I like for this one, sticking with the top league goal scorer, for the Premier League, I like Rasmus Højlund at 8-1 for Denmark. So if you look at the guys above him, you have Foden, Saka, Havertz, and Diego Jota. I don't know if Diego Jota is actually going to play for Portugal, quite frankly, because typically through qualifying, they started Leao on the left and Bernardo Silva on the right. As far as Havertz is concerned, with all, he's going to play the same role for Germany that he played for Arsenal, which is more of a deeper role in build-up. And even for Arsenal this season, he only averaged 2.3 shots per 90. It's not like he was getting elite level striker production. Saka did average over 3 shots per 90. I'm an Arsenal fan, Sam, so I love him to death. But most of those shots were from outside the box, and he's not the one. And Kane's the focal point of the England attack. He's going to get most of the shots. And the same thing with Foden. I don't know what role he's going to play. I don't know if he's going to play out left, or I don't know if he's going to play as a 10 in the middle. So I'm not sure what his shot production numbers are going to look like. And even when he did play for England in qualifying, he only played a few matches, but he was barely averaging 1 shot per 90. So that leads me to Højlund, who is going to be the main shot guy for Denmark. He had 7 goals in qualifying. If you watch, Højlund at Manchester United this season, you'll know that he had a really horrible first half of the season, but he really came on in the second half. 11 goals over his last 20 matches. He's a very specialized striker in the fact that he's really good in transition. And the matches that Denmark are going to play against Serbia, who Michael will get to them in a second, they're the biggest chaos team in this entire tournament, and England, where they're going to have to play in transition because they're not going to control the ball. Those are 2 matches that he can absolutely thrive in. Then against Slovenia, who they already played in qualifying, he scored in the only goal they played against them. And if you get Slovenia into a negative game state, well, then you're going to be playing in transition once again. And Denmark, although the squad is older, I think we have some potential to at least get to the quarterfinals. So Hoyland at 8-1, I think, is going to get the most shot production, or at least the most shots of the guys ahead of him. So I think there's some value on him at 8-1.
I really like that as well, BJ, because he's one of those strikers where he's like a purple patch streaky striker. So let's say he hits the ground running in game 1, would not be surprised to then see him score, game 2, 3 knockouts. So yeah, I like that. So it's a good price.
Yeah, let's talk about Serbia. To continue building this round robin, I think England do kind of just end up running away with the group here. I don't see them having too much trouble. I like Serbia to come in second here, and it's because of that chaos you're talking about, BJ. When Serbia shows up to a match, we saw this at the World Cup. The person you are before the match starts, you're going to be a completely different person when that match ends. Like, these guys show up and all hell breaks loose. And it's not a different. I don't expect anything different. We saw that at the World Cup. They played a really, really good game against Brazil, if you remember that, right? Like, they were hanging around with Brazil that entire game. I don't think Brazil really understood how to manage the situation of this complete fire alarm team that Serbia is. And I think that will unsettle teams like Denmark and Slovenia that are so reliant on structure and cohesiveness as a group. Like, you get the tallest team in the tournament shows up. They're physical. They have a really technically gifted midfield. They have their flaws, right? They're 80-1 to win this tournament for a reason. They're the third favorite to come to win the group for a reason. But if they show up and they're able to deploy what they want to do against you and they get the game off your script, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. And I don't think that they'll have issues with Slovenia. I think that they'll give Denmark enough problems. Who knows how it goes against England, but I actually think they could have some success against, as Sam was talking about, that middle part of the back of England, the middle part of England's back line with Stones and now Gahey or Dunk or whoever it is. When you look at how this Serbia team, you expect them to score. Yeah, like the cliche would be balls in through crosses and Mitrovic just heading away. And against a team like England, I think that works, right? Like, they could be physical with those guys. But it's like those gifted midfielders with the ball at their feet, like Dusan Tadic, and I'm gonna absolutely butcher some of these pronunciations, so I'm not even gonna go there. But he's got a great deputy in Lazar Samardzic. You look at the Milinkovic Savic guys. The goalkeeper's terrific. The midfielder's great. Like, this is a team that can give you issues, and then Vlahovic as the kind of second fiddle for Mitrovic. Like, there's enough talent here. Serbia's either going to go 0-3-0 and have like a -6 goal differential, or they're going to give these teams a lot of trouble. I'm going to go with the other. I'm going to be riding this team, I think, the whole tournament. And the one other thing I want to note, if you remember, the last 2 World Cups now, they've been dealt with some weird geopolitical matchups where they've been taking on the Swiss, and things get kind of ugly and they can get distracted. We've avoided that here, right? They don't have to really worry too much about that kind of stuff. So I know everybody in Serbia hates their manager. I kind of like that here. I think that this team might show up and just cause a complete ruckus, and that's the type of team I want to back in these tournaments where the data is so hard to rely on because of different schedules. The qualifying groups teams playing are completely differently set up. I mean, you talked about Germany not even playing one, so the data is really, really hard to rely on. So I'm going to lean into the chaos here. Serbia reminds me a little bit in this tournament, like we talked about Japan in the World Cup. We were really into Japan, and the reason we liked them was because they were going to show up and they were going to play this chaos ball, and it was going to be on the other team to adapt to that. And I'm hoping that Serbia does that, and this time it works out for them. And they've got the finishers and the goalkeeper to make those things stand up, in my opinion. So the Serbs to finish. So England first, Serbia second, plus 230 as part of that. And I'll talk more about Serbia later in the show as well. All right. Before we move on to Group D, a reminder that Wondergoal is proudly presented by Bet365, and Bet365 doesn't do ordinary. That's why you get more boosts with them than anyone else. Every day they power up the odds on hundreds of bets to give you a chance to win more. Bet365 boosts specific markets, your winnings, and even parlays, and they don't stop there. Keep an eye out for their biggest and best odds with the incredible Super Boost. Check out the boosts and see why it's never ordinary at Bet365. You must be 21 or older and present in Arizona, Colorado, Indiana, Iowa, Louisiana, North Carolina, New Jersey, Ohio, Virginia, or 18 and older in Kentucky. If you or anyone you know has a gambling problem, wants help, please call 1-800-GAMBLER or 1-800-BETS-OFF in Iowa. Terms, conditions, and restrictions apply. All right, so that's Group C done and dusted. We're moving on to Group D, which is set up for France. It's their odds on at -188 to top the group. The Netherlands are +275 behind them. Very interesting team in Austria. I think we say that anytime that they're in an international tournament, but they're 8-1. And then a very uninteresting team in Poland. Like they just show, they're kind of like the poor man Switzerland in these kind of things. They show up and then they bow out. People talk about, can Robert Lewandowski get this team over the line on his own? And we're now at the point of his career where the answer is pretty emphatically no, Sam. And that leads into what you're going to get into.
Yes, it does. Poland, lowest scoring team at the competition, +800. So we've got Albania +300 as the favourites to take the lowest scorers mantle in Germany this summer. Albania won a qualifying group consisting of Czech Republic, who also progressed, and Poland, who finished third and scored 2 goals fewer than Albania in qualifying. In Albania's group, you got Spain, Italy, Croatia, so you can see why they're favourites to not score so many goals. But Poland's Group D, like you just said, France, Netherlands, Austria, it's a tough group, and we all know it's pretty obvious that Lewandowski isn't the force he once was. There are very few signs that anyone's coming in to replace him in terms of goal scoring in this Polish side. And if you think if France, the Netherlands, and Austria can put together some kind of game plan to stop Lewandowski, I can't see too many other ways that this Poland side will consistently trouble opposition defenses. Since the year 2000, looking on this Betting Expert betting guide, since the year 2000, out of the 35 nations, no country's games has averaged fewer goals scored at the Euros than Poland, with 1.8 goals per 90. So it's not a nation that's blessed with goals. And I think it's going to be close down there in the betting with Albania, but and I think it's Slovakia. Scotland are down there too. Haven't got the market up in front of me, but I think Poland should be down there or thereabouts when stepping up in class against the better nations. And I just think if you look at the other nations that I mentioned, Georgia's one too. Kvaratskhelia, I'm going to butcher this. Mikotadze, who's on loan at Metz from Ajax, and also Benjamin Sesko for Slovenia too. So like these other nations, they've got firepower, and I know Lewandowski is there too, but I think they might have enough to maybe edge in front of Poland. Obviously, it's a bit of a long shot of +800, but I think there are much worse bets you could take. So yeah, Poland lowest scoring team +800.
Yeah, I like that bet a lot as well. When you jotted that one down, I'm in full agreement. I think what it is it's just the numbers getting inflated because of the presence of Lewandowski compared to these teams that their kind of talisman are going to be a little less of a household name when it comes to finding success in front of goals. So I think that's a good one. I talked about the Netherlands as my outright pick, BJ. What do you have here in Group D?
I love Austria to advance at -110. So I think people are going to discredit Austria because they're going to be without David Alaba. They're going to be without Xavier Schlager. But Austria actually has really good players at those positions that can fill in where the drop-off won't be as significant, right? So Marcel Sabitzer, who didn't really play much during qualifying, who played pretty well for Dortmund this season, can slot in right in Schlager's role. And they, for me, have everything you want in an underdog, because we talk about the teams and we'll get to the long shots as well. But Ralf Rangnick has this team playing his system to an absolute T. I think people will write off Rangnick because of how poorly that spell with Manchester United went. But you have to remember, he came in at the halfway point of that season with United, and it was a team that was not set up to play his pressing system. For those who don't know, Rangnick is like the godfather of the German high pressing system. Guys from Klopp to Tuchel to Nagelsmann, they always all credit Ragnick as being the first guy to really bring that type of system onto the scene. So he's very, very good at setting his team up in a good systematic pressing style. And they were really good at qualifying by doing that. They were top 5 in high recoveries, but most importantly, they were number 1 in dual win rate, which at the basic level of football, ignore tactics, whatever it is, the team that wins the most duels is generally the team that has a better chance of winning. And Austria can do that with their midfield, with their defense. They have a good they have a good striker in Gregoritsch, who had a good season for Freiburg. He averaged over 4 shots per 90 in qualifying. They're a really good transition team. And if you're a team like Austria who's not going to control the ball against France or against Netherlands, you can press well from a mid block. You can create those transition opportunities, and you can cause havoc. And that's what I want from an underdog. They're going to, I think because of you guys mentioned the group is very difficult because there's no real bottom end team like an Albania or a Georgia here, because Poland's that bottom end team. But they're going to be pretty significant favorites over Poland. They're going to have a good matchup against the Netherlands. -110, I think, is far too short for them to advance. Typically, the last 2 tournaments, to get through in 3rd place, it's about 3 points and around an even goal differential is kind of what you need. If you have 3 points and a pretty significant negative goal differential, it's going to be very difficult. And like we already mentioned, I think Group A and Group E are the 2 groups that are most likely not to have a team go through in 3rd place. So I think there's potential that Austria could even finish 2nd in this group as well. Sorry, Michael. But I love how this team plays under Ragnick. They're playing his system to a T. So Austria -110, I think, is far too short of a price for a team that averaged over 2 expected goals per 90 minutes during qualifying in a group with Belgium and Sweden.
Okay. Yeah. That brings us on to Group E. I will say an interesting caveat to that, BJ, is that they do open up against France, so you might even be able to buy back on them to advance.
Michael, I would stay tuned to our first round betting podcast, because maybe that might not be the case.
Look out.
Who knows? Stay tuned.
Okay. That brings us to Group E. Belgium, freed from the shackles of Roberto Martinez, are sitting at -225 to win the group. They've got Ukraine as the second favorites, Romania +650, and Slovakia at 11-1. The more and more I've thought about this, and as BJ said off the top of the show, right, it's always the favorites that win these tournaments, but there will almost certainly be a team from out of nowhere to make a run to, whether it's the Final Four or get to a quarterfinal and push a team to penalties. We've seen it with Wales and Turkey, Czech Republic, a decade ago. I'm starting to fall for this Romania team, and I don't know if it's more about just like we haven't seen them in a while. I'm sure there's no love lost between Romania and Sam, because it was at Euro 2000 they upset England in the quarterfinals in one of the famous upsets of this tournament. But it has to do with the group. They are, they're clearly a tier below, many tiers below Belgium, below the Ukraine, but they are better than Slovakia, and the gap between them and the Ukraine really isn't that wide. And I do think we're going to see a lot of people looking to back the Ukraine here for a lot of different reasons. One, I mean, they do have a pretty high ceiling, but the more I think about it, the more I like this Romania team. They had a really good qualifying campaign. As we said, they finished ahead of Switzerland. The group wasn't all that strong, but as BJ noted before, you got to beat the teams in front of you. Plus, they're Romania, so it's not like they're one of the teams in that group that they're not. It's not like Netherlands walking through that group, right? It's Romania doing it. That's a team showing that they're taking a step up. They do have some talent here. They've got a good center back pair. I don't expect them to be a team that's going to take all that many risks. Kind of the opposite of what I was saying about Serbia. I think this team's going to show up and look to grind out points and get through, rather than just show up and try to throw teams off with the way they play. So I actually think Romania is an interesting team to watch here. I like Belgium, Romania as another leg of my round robin in the dual forecast. It's close to 4-1, plus 380. And I do think that 7-1 on Romania to be eliminated in the quarterfinals is another bet, because I do think they could be one of those momentum teams like we saw with Wales. We've seen in this tournament time and time again, when these teams get through that group stage and that kind of pressure comes off, that they already now they're playing with house money in the round of 16. They can pull another upset, especially if they play the style of soccer where they're just trying to drag teams to the business end of a match and win it 1-0 or take it in extra time or shootout. So I think that there's a little bit to this Romania team, BJ, that I'm going to be falling for. And I think maybe that's, if you've been listening to the show, you probably would expect me to walk down this path with a team like this, and it's going to be Romania.
I'm going to have to disagree, Michael, because I actually like Romania not to advance at plus 125. So I went back and watched their 2 matches against Switzerland in qualifying. They primarily rely on just a few transition attacks a match to create most of their chances. And even when they played against some of the smaller teams, their buildup is very slow. The rotations are slow.
Yeah, the Jose Mourinho Romania.
Yeah.
It's beautiful.
It is beautiful, in a sense, if that's what you find beauty in. But they really struggle to even just get the ball into the final third. And even against Switzerland, I know they scored 3 goals and they beat them 1-0 at home and drew them 2-2. They had 0.8 expected goals total in those 2 matches. Even in one of these incredibly easy qualifying groups, they allowed 1.1 expected goals per 90 minutes, which is 17th in this Euro field. In terms of talent, I would say they're the second least talented team in this field behind Albania. Dragishin is the name I think people will recognize from this team. Outside of him, they don't have much talent playing across Europe. In fact, their attack has just one guy who barely played for Alaves this season. Stanisu is going to be their main attacking player. He's playing for a mid-table club in the Saudi Pro League. And they benefited from being in the easiest group here, where it's kind of like, hey, let's take your pick between Slovakia and Romania. They play in the very final match. So this bet really may come down to that final match. But there is a book that has odds out for the final third round match, and that match is priced as a straight pick 'em right now. So I don't agree with the fact that the market is pricing Romania at essentially plus 125 to not advance, but Slovakia is like minus 175. And at least Slovakia has a really good center back pairing and a really good midfielder. I know they aren't really that great of a team in terms of their attack, but just from the pricing standpoint, I don't really agree with it. This Romania team to me is just very untalented. They're not pleasing to watch. They also play a high line at times. It's from watching them, it's almost a little bit Unai Emery-esque, Michael, where it's very, very compact defensive structure, high line. Playing that against a team like Belgium or Ukraine they're just going to rip them apart. So, and they've also benefited, similar to a team like Hungary, they benefited pretty much the entire qualifying campaign playing in an even or positive game state. The second that they go behind and they have to press and they have to force the issue, that's where things are going to fall apart. And you could say the same thing about Slovakia as well. But for me, I don't think Romania is advancing, and I like the price of plus 125.
Sam, anything else to add on Romania, the team of the tournament here?
Yeah, just to kick you while you're down, Michael. I landed on this selection. It's Belgium, Ukraine, Group E, dual forecast at plus 125, simply because I think there's some distance between Belgium and Ukraine and the other 2 nations in the group, Romania and Slovakia. So you've touched on them both. I don't really have too much to offer in terms of talking about those 2 nations, but the dual forecast market, as BJ mentioned in Group A, means it doesn't matter who finishes first or second, just as long as they're both in the top 2 at the end of play. Yeah, we've touched on it, I suppose. Group E and Group D are the 2 groups for me that I feel that will probably have 2 runaway nations in 1 and 2. So I was instantly attracted to a dual forecast punt. I feel like this is a bet that maybe shouldn't be thought about too much. Belgium and Ukraine should be looking at Romania and Slovakia as must-win games, whilst the tie with Belgium between Ukraine is probably a must-not-lose in either camp. So at plus money, I think this is one of the standouts in Group E that maybe we shouldn't think too much about. But obviously, Michael disagrees with that entirely.
Yep. Yeah, I think this is in these tournaments, you just get a team.
Someone's going to be right unless Slovakia wins this group.
Yeah, Slovakia is going to come out ahead. Yeah. Okay, that brings us to Group F, and this is the tournament. This is the group of the tournament that I think you could argue has the most pathways. There's so much hype around this Portugal team, and you look at it on paper, similar to what Sam was saying about England, like the talent is there, that it's going to be really, really hard to stop them from scoring. But there is the Roberto Martinez factor. I actually think, that really looms large here. What is there all that much that's different from the way that this Portugal team is set up from his Belgium teams?
No.
No, right? That's why I'm trying to figure out. We won't get into manager stuff, why they hired him or whatever. But to me, that completely obliterates the gap between the floor and the ceiling for Portugal, right? Like, yeah, they could completely outshine everybody in this field and go and win this tournament, and nobody would be surprised. The odds suggest that they should be one of the favorites on talent alone. It doesn't matter. I don't care if nobody's in the dugout. Like, this team could absolutely run the show at this tournament. But the problem is they could also be set up so crazily by Martinez that the floor could just come out and this team could, fall apart. So I do think, BJ, you're kind of walking down the right path here with this, which is find a long shot here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So there's two bets I like. I'll get to, the Czechs in a second, but let's talk about Portugal. So Roberto Martinez, if you look at this on paper, you might think that Portugal is like the best team ever created, what they did in qualifying. 38 goals, won all 10 matches, only allowed 2. The 2 goals they allowed were just absolute screamers from way outside the box by Slovakia. Outside of that, they didn't allow a goal. But from watching Roberto Martinez in the matches against Slovakia, he was constantly trying to change tactics from this to that to this to that. If he tries to do that in this group, I think he's going to fall flat on his face. And I think he has a real dilemma in their midfield of who he actually starts because of the opponents that they're going to face. The Czech Republic, yes, from a talent perspective, you could look at them on paper and you could say, well, maybe they're not that good. But guess what? They're going to give it a go. They had the most high recoveries of anybody during the Euro qualifying. They are going to press. They're going to force the issue. And Portugal did not play a single team during qualifying that applied any ball pressure. So with the guys that Portugal has, from Fernandes to Silva to Ronaldo to all the talent that you talk about, yes, these guys are incredible when they're not being pressed and they're able to make passes freely while teams are just playing low blocks. Turkey is in the same respect that they are going to press and they are going to force the issue as well. So what does this Portugal team look like when they have to face somebody who's going to press them high? They're pretty bad against Slovenia in a friendly where they had to face a team that was actually decent in transition. Czech Republic also, during qualifying, they did finish second behind Albania. They played the entire qualifying without their main striker, Patrick Schick. Like, they had nobody up top, and they were pretty much relying on set pieces to get most of it done. So they are a team that I think can really improve in this tournament. And as far as Turkey is concerned, Turkey made a managerial change to Montanelli halfway through qualifying, and the performances just instantly got better. He's kind of, he's an Italian manager. He spent a lot of time managing in Serie A, managed Adamadirspor in the Turkish Super League and brought them up to really big heights. Now taking over the Turkish national team. He's got a little De Zerbi in him where he wants to build out of the back, but create a transition opportunity from that. He's not as rigid as De Zerbi is of like, we're going to play at the back and we're going to pass the ball short. He wants to get into transition moments and play very direct, building out of the back as a structure of that. And Turkey has a lot of talented attackers that can get forward as well. So I don't think it's really straightforward here for Portugal. And also Ronaldo, he's just as selfish as ever. And his form is not as good as it's been in years past. If you remember at the last World Cup, he threw a big fit because they started Gonçalo Ramos up top and he had a hat trick against Switzerland. Ronaldo's going to start up top every single match, and he's going to take every single shot for Portugal. And he's not as good in form as he's been in years past. He averaged 5.7 shots per night in qualifying. So Czech Republic first, Turkey second. Exact finishing order is 33-1. I love that. That's one of my favorite long shots during the group stage. I also like Czech Republic to advance at -137 because you do have a clear bottom end team here in Georgia, who every team in this group should beat. So those are my two bets for Group F.
That is brave. I've not got anything as bold as that, but I do have a 33-1 shot in Bernardo Silva to get the most assists in the tournament. So Portugal have lost once under Roberto Martinez, and that was when Bernardo Silva wasn't in the squad at all against Slovenia in a friendly in March. They've won every other game under Martinez. Now, I'm not saying that's a direct correlation and the result didn't mean too much. Obviously, it was a friendly, but managers remember these things, and you want your best players playing in your biggest matches. And I think Silva gets close to playing every minute of every game at the Euros, unless the game's won and Martinez can take him off. So I just think he's so important to this Portugal side, as he is to Man City. He offers a wealth of experience at the very highest level, and he reaches the loftiest standards week after week after week on a football pitch. The thing is, he's not just so good going forward. He'll get stuck in defensively. He'll help out the right back on his side. He's largely press resistant, and he'll always show for the ball no matter what. So he's vital to this Portuguese team, and I don't think getting minutes is a problem despite the backlog of Portuguese forwards available. So he's either going to play in a three-man midfield or he's going to play on the right of a front three. But I'd maybe lean towards a deeper role just because of how many options Portugal have on their hands. If it was up to me, I'd probably play him right at the front three. But regardless, especially in the group stage, I expect him to be further up the pitch, regardless of position, and operating in the final third to break down low blocks and be seen feeding balls into the right winger or the striker, whoever that may be. He shouldn't be too far from the 18-yard box for large spells. So if you look at him in the Premier League against Fulham, in the third to last game in the Premier League season, he managed 2 assists in that game. That meant he had registered multiple assists in the Premier League game for the 5th time in a Man City shirt. Then 2 games later, on the final day of the season, he did exactly the same against West Ham to make it his 6th occasion of picking up multiple assists in a Premier League game. So only Kevin De Bruyne and David Silva and Raheem Sterling have registered more assists for City than Bernardo Silva. So I thought I may as well look at Portugal as well. And he managed 4 assists in 9 in qualifying, but he's also got the 3rd most assists for the Portuguese national side in their history with 29. So he's behind Ronaldo and one other. Can you fancy guessing who the other is? Legend.
Figo.
Figo, yeah, spot on. So Figo and Ronaldo are both on 46. So in a Portuguese setup where he's very important and he's likely to be one of the consistent starters where there's so much competition for places, in a team where we expect to score a lot of goals and lay on a lot of opportunities. Like you said, Ronaldo shoots about 20 times a game. So this looks like it has legs at 33-1, and he also takes corners as well. And there are some big boys in that Portugal team. So from set pieces, that's an avenue as well.
To add on to Sam's point, this is a great bet, is that, Silva, like you mentioned, played a more central and maybe more of an out wide role because Fernandes is the one playing that middle role. When they were playing teams that played primarily, low defensive blocks like Slovakia and all the other teams in their group, they primarily relied on utilizing Ronaldo where he's at his best, essentially cutbacks and crosses to him, because he is so good at, finding that space in the box. And Silva is a huge key to that. So that's a wonderful selection, Sam.
Yeah. He's also 66-1 to win player of the tournament. We'll get into like player futures later, but I think that's the way you'd want to play Portugal, is rather than playing them in the team future market, because I don't think this number is going anywhere anyway. So like I would wait to see actually how they adapt to the tournament setting, the pressure of having these expectations on them again under Martinez. And it's not like if they're expected to win the group. So they win the group, it's not like this number is going to get, cratered or anything. If you want to bet them to win the tournament, I would much rather, before the tournament starts, invest, if you are into Portugal and you want to play into their ceiling a bit, a play like Silva to lead the tournament in assists at 33-1 or 66-1 as player of the tournament is the way to go. So yeah, I think that's a good shout and a good one to close out that section of the show. All right, we'll get into some long shots now. The only rule here for the 3 of us was you had to find something that was longer than 20-1. BJ, what did you come up with?
Yeah, I have 2 80 to long shots. One of them is Switzerland and one of them is Austria at 80-1. So I already spoke about Switzerland. Having that key experience core together is really important at these international tournaments, as they've proven at the last Euros. They pulled off an upset against France. The path for them would be seeing, essentially, if they finish second, seeing England in the round of quarterfinals. But here's what I'll also say, is that Germany and Switzerland play each other in the final match of the group stage. Crazier things have happened where we could get to a scenario where if England or France start to falter and it sets up where Germany is potentially going to be on the same side of the bracket as one of them. We saw Spain do it at the last World Cup, and it's happened a couple times. Germany may let just Switzerland have it and try to find a better and try to get to a better place in the group. So we'll see what happens there. But as far as Switzerland is concerned, yes, they have the ability to upset England with this core. Austria's path, though, if they finish second in Group D, I think is amazing because they're going to get the second place team in Group E, which is most likely going to be Ukraine. Again, they have this structure under Ragnick that can play really well against favorites. Then you get potentially Portugal in the quarterfinals, a team, like I already mentioned, who hasn't been pressed at all during qualifying, and then potentially playing Germany in the semifinals. So if you're looking for a long shot to win the tournament, Switzerland and Austria at 80-1 are my two favorite ones.
Sam?
Yeah, so I don't want to go over old ground because I've already mentioned I fancy Germany in the outright markets. This selection is Germany outright and Mbappe top goal scorer at 40-1. So this is basically pairing my two biggest fancies of the tournament and getting a 40-1 price, which I think might go quite close. They should, if all goes to plan, and usually doesn't happen like that, they should meet in the final. So if they do meet in the final, this definitely has legs, and I think I'll save the rest of the explanation for our next section, which is the top goal scorer prediction.
You got it. And I talked about Serbia a lot. They're my favorite long shot in the futures market. The path is a little rough because of if they finish second, like it's a date with Germany in all likelihood in the round of 16. That said, if they are somehow able to nick the group or finish third and get a lucky bounce or something, things open up. And I just like the fact that this team is going to show up and it's going to force you to adapt to their style rather than the other way around. They are going to go there and try to bully teams, cause chaos, and I think they're being a little overlooked because of the path. So I think 80-1 of teams in that range. I think Serbia's got the highest ceiling. Okay, that brings up we're gonna get into some player futures, and we will start with our golden boots. Sam, you talked about it, so you alluded to it. You can go first here.
Yeah, just quickly, Michael, going back to the long shots, did you not fancy Romania?
No, to win the tournament.
Yeah.
Hey, you know what? Look, it'll
10.
take a lot of self-control for me not to have a little sprinkle on them. But I'd much rather. I think that to finish in the quarterfinal is almost akin to them winning the tournament, unless they play England, because they always beat England in the quarterfinals of these Euros. So maybe
Hey, come
then
on,
we're
we're
getting there. But yeah, I'm infatuated by them. I can't wait for them to come out and 0-0 their way, kind of like Northern Ireland in 2016, just 0-0 their way to the round of 16.
Yeah,
That was the best. That's why I know a lot of people think this format is like unpopular, but I love it because it gives a team the opportunity to literally show up and just shut it down and try to get through that way. And I think Romania is the team that will do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Love it. Well, yeah, going back to the golden boot, I've gone really boring here and I'm hanging my hat on the favorite in the betting, Kylian Mbappe at +450. At 23 years old, just 23 years old, is crazy, really. He's scored 12 World Cup goals in 14 appearances at the two tournaments. He's got a hat-trick in the final, obviously, of the last major tournament he was in Qatar with France. 33 goals in 78 France games, 5 strikes behind Griezmann, who's the leading French national goal scorer. So in his last Euros, though, he failed to score a goal. It was a poor tournament. He missed a penalty against Switzerland in the round of 16. So Germany 2024, his domestic future is sorted. That's no longer up in the air. So full focus is on France, and he's probably also out to impress Real Madrid fans a little and leave them salivating for his upcoming career as a modern day Galactico. So there's just not another player I'd feel as confident in backing as Kylian Mbappe heading into the summer, hence his inclusion here in the podcast. He's just brilliant, isn't he? And I don't really have too much to say that's not already been said, but I think he's going to cherish another tournament where France need him to perform for any chance of winning silverware. He feels like that kind of person. He just wants to be the main man. He's got all the tools to be the main man, and he doesn't he doesn't mind that kind of responsibility. A lot of players would wilt in a position like that, but Kylian Mbappe flourishes. And if you're not one for betting on favorites, then I've got a stat here for you that you might enjoy. Since 1994, 10 of the 24 players to win the Golden Boot at the World Cup or European Championship have been priced at 50 to 1 or larger. 7 of those players were 100 to 1 or bigger. So if you're not a favorites backer, then, you know, I wouldn't put you off something a little bit bigger. But just for me, Mbappe at a fairly decent price. I think France are going to go all the way. Like I said, I think they'll do England and meet Germany in the final. So he's going to get the games required to hit 4, 5, 6, 7 goals. And yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see him do it.
Yeah, that's a great stat. The last Euros, BJ was excruciatingly close to hitting one of those 150 to 1 shots with Patrick Schick, who got nicked because of the assist tiebreaker.
And that's gonna lead into my point here, Michael. Before you bet these markets, make sure you realize what the title of the market is, because I have seen some markets that say Golden Boot winner, and I've seen some markets that say top goal scorer. So at the last Euros, when I hit Patrick Schick, I got half the price. Essentially, I got cut in half because he tied Ronaldo. Technically was the top goal scorer. So make sure you compare prices. If it's Golden Boot, you better be getting a pretty significant price better than an actual top goal scorer, because since this tournament is only so few matches, the probability of tying at the top is much larger than it would be over a 38 match season. So in that aspect, Michael, I like Lukaku at 20 to 1 to be the top goal scorer of this tournament. Lukaku led everybody in qualifying with 14 goals and 6.6 90s, but he's getting elite shot production at the Belgian level, 4.4 shots per 90. And, you know, Domenico Tedesco, I think, is a pretty decent manager. I wouldn't rate him as a top tier manager, but football can be a simple game sometimes. And Belgium's approach is just get the ball to Lukaku. Get the ball to your best goal scorer in any way possible, whether it be a cross in the half space. You know, obviously Lukaku is one of the best at pinning defenders in and pivoting right off of them. He does that really well in the half space. But the biggest thing is Lukaku is in the easiest group, as we already identified. In terms of expected goals allowed per 90 minutes, Romania was 17th in qualifying, Slovakia was 24th, and Ukraine was 19th. History has shown that you just need 5 or 6 goals to win this award. Griezmann did it with 6 in 2016. Ronaldo and Schick both had 5 in 2020. In addition to that, I mean, he is the focal point of Belgium's attack, I already mentioned. He's getting 1.4 more shots per 90 than the next closest guy on Belgium. So at 20 to 1, with an easy path to the round of 16 and potentially the quarters, he's going to get 3 easy matches in goal qualifying. He's going to get hopefully a pretty decent match in the round of 16. So there are 4 matches against pretty average to below average defenses where he can really score. He's not been in great form for Roma this season, but he's been really good form for Belgium. And guess what? Hopefully he makes up from that disaster against Croatia at the last game of the World Cup, where he missed I don't know how many chances in front of net.
Yeah, I don't mind that one at all. We talked about Murata. Obviously, we're going to be playing him at 33 to 1. We don't need to we'll be talking about him throughout the whole tournament as well. I do think there's a little bit of value on Phil Foden at 30 to 1, and I think it's just because everyone's going to be back in Harry Kane, and I know that makes it a little more difficult. Kane's presence makes it difficult for Foden to come out ahead in this market, but he was so damn good for City down the stretch that if he can just carry that form into this tournament, he's absolutely a danger here. I know that I was talking about Serbia's chances in that group and to make some noise further in the tournament, but they shouldn't be held against anybody here in Group C. So I think that England should be scoring plenty. Maybe if Southgate wants to manage Kane a little bit, keep him fresh, I think that there's a path for Foden and a guy that Sam we'll talk about furthermore in a little bit. But for Ukraine, Artem Dovbyk, and if you want to say this is a little bit of a hedge against my love for these Romanians, go right ahead. But he's 66 to 1 to lead the tournament in goals. this is to me is the Patrick Schick kind of bet where if you're getting to 4, this guy can get to 4, he can get to 5 and really give this bet some legs. He can outrun these odds. He had 24 and 36 for Girona in La Liga. And you look at the group, even Portugal, right? Like Roberto Martinez is not going to set up Portugal to keep anybody off of the scoreboard. So I think Ukraine can, if they can find a goal or two there, they should be able to score against Slovakia. Nobody's scoring against Romania. So hopefully he gets enough against those first two guys. But I think it's 66-1. He's absolutely worth a bet here, Sam. And we can get into what else you have as we get into any other futures that we've got that we want to play.
I think 66-1 is a great price, but I think maybe like 10 days ago it was 150-1. Obviously, the podcast is a bit later down the road, so we didn't get that. But 66 is, yeah, it's still half decent. And my bet here is Dovbyk over 1.5 goals. You can get that at plus 150. And if you're a fan of La Liga or you've watched La Liga at all this season, then Artem Dovbyk will need no introduction. No one scored more than him in the Spanish top flight. 24 goals in 32 starts, I think 36 appearances overall, like you mentioned. He scored a hat-trick in a 7-0 win against Granada on the final day to get the Golden Boot. And only 4 players, if you're looking at the top 5 European leagues, Kane, Guirassy, Haaland, and Mbappe, has scored more domestic goals than Dovbyk's 24 this campaign. So Girona and Ukraine's front man heads to Germany in supreme form, leading the line of this Ukrainian side is the main focal point, and he's a penalty taker too, which obviously helps. And I think Ukraine are just a team that's going to cause a lot of headaches, and especially Dovbyk. He's big, powerful. He's quite nippy once he gets going as well. He's a handful in the box, and now he's showing a developing skill set of finding the net regularly in one of the best leagues in the world. So, that's not too bad. Ukraine qualified via the playoffs in March, and they did so by beating Bosnia and then Iceland with 2 late goals. Dovbyk got one of them. And I think that should do them wonders coming into the tournament and maybe feed the squad with the belief that they can produce when it really matters. So, as we've spoken about, they enter a group of Romania, Slovakia, and Belgium, who, in my eyes, they all offer a reasonable opportunity for Ukraine to get on the score sheet. And none of those sides, including Belgium, are impenetrable. And that's how Ukraine and a fit and firing Artem Dovbyk will see it. So, yeah, for him to get 2 goals, let's say Ukraine gets a penalty and then he scores from open play somewhere else at plus 150. If they do advance to the knockouts, I think that's a pretty good price.
Yeah, I kept saying Portugal. I meant Belgium. They should be able to get on.
Does it really matter either way?
No, it doesn't matter. No, that's the point, right? Like it just doesn't matter. All right, a couple other ones I wanted to bring up in terms of just like player futures. And BJ, you've got a list here. If you are going to bet Belgium, I would just bet, rather than bet the 16-1, I would bet Kevin De Bruyne to win the player of the tournament at 20-1. I think those two things are pretty correlated. I'd have a really hard time seeing Belgium win this tournament without De Bruyne capturing the golden ball. So I actually like that quite a bit. I think that even the other good thing about that bet is it has legs even if they don't win. Like he could just completely boss the tournament and they can get to the semifinals and he'd be worth a little bit of a look. And if it is coming home, why not Jordan Pickford at 100-1? Because if England's going to win this tournament, they're going to have to win a couple of shootouts. This is what they do. And Pickford, as a goalkeeper, I mean, you look at what he's faced at Everton and the pressure he's been under through the past 3 seasons. And when the games have been at their craziest, not only does he make the big save, but he makes the type of save that gets kind of people looking at it and being like, that was insane because of the antics and stuff. He's someone who can create his own narrative. And I think that stuff actually really matters when we're looking at these kind of personal awards. And one other long shot, and I think this is one that I'm kind of teetering on, but rather than going the Mbappe route in France, I kind of like Camavinga at 80-1 to be like the breakout star here. He would have to do a lot just to beat Mbappe. But he's another one that has a little bit of interest in me in the golden ball. We do see some long shots win here. I like to pat myself on the back for Modric a bunch of years ago at 200-1 in the World Cup. BJ, any other futures you want to get into before we get out of here?
Yeah, so I have as typical with these international tournaments, I have way too many bets on them. I won't bore everybody with every single one of them. If you want to see all of them, they'll be available in the Action Network app. We'll also have an article coming out on the actionnetwork.com that you can read and make sure that everybody gets them. I'll just mention a couple here. Scott McTominay to be Scotland's top goal scorer at 6-1. Like Sam already mentioned, Lyndon Dykes is injured, which means Che Adams is going to be the main man up top, which Che Adams historically for Scotland and their mainly transition-based system has not thrived very well. And McTominay led them with seven goals and 2.7 shots per 90 throughout qualifying. They rely on a lot of cutbacks to him and shots from outside the box. He's also a big threat on set pieces. So especially when they play against Hungary, and Scotland might only score 1 goal. Hopefully it's Scott McTominay. Lukaku to be Belgium's top goal scorer at plus 120. I think that's a crazy price for how much production he gets over everybody else in the lineup, especially in an easy group. Couple to lead the tournament in assists. Griezmann, 18-1. Theo Hernandez, 66-1. Both of them. If Mbappe is going to win the Golden Boot, it is going to be because either Theo Hernandez or Griezmann are assisting him. Griezmann, throughout qualifying, primarily was playing in the right half space, but in their recent friendly against Luxembourg, Deschamps moved him back over to where he was at the World Cup in that left half space, combining with Mbappe and Theo Hernandez. At the World Cup, both Hernandez and Griezmann had 19 passes that led to a shot, which were both top 5 in the tournament. Same thing in qualifying. Same thing qualifying with those two guys. Again, if Sam's selection is going to win, I think it's going to be because of one of those two guys. So I'm taking longer prices on them. And then the longest shot, Michael, I texted you about this the other day.
Yeah, we love this one. I feel like we played this one at the last Euros as well, right?
Well, I played a Ukrainian in this market, the last one. I think it was Ruslan Molinovsky.
Right. Yes.
Mudryk, most assists, 200-1. Like we already mentioned, Ukraine's going to be in an easy group. Most importantly, though, with the Ukrainian national team, I know that Mudryk has not been in good form for Chelsea, but he is a star for the Ukrainian national team, and they love to get the ball to him, to utilize his pace, his ball carrying ability, and to get the ball down the left wing. Now that they have somebody like Dovbyk, he's primarily more of a creator and an assister than actually having to get his own shot. If you look at the teams that he's going to play in this group, what is common is that Romania and Slovakia have terrible right backs who are not going to be able to deal with his pace. Even Belgium, the system that they play primarily, Castane likes to invert into the midfield when they're in possession, which leaves a lot of space down the left-hand side. And Belgium does not have a very good center back pairing either. So there's 3 opportunities there for Mudryk to just absolutely wreak havoc down the left-hand side and hopefully feed Dovbyk that way. So, and at Bet365, you can also do a top 4 each way, which, in this market, typically 4 or 3 assists wins it. The last tournament, Steven Zuber won it. I don't think he was even on the board to actually win the assist because if you remember, he padded all of his stats in that third match against Turkey. That didn't really matter to either team.
Yep.
But for me, I think Mudryk actually has a really nice path here, especially against these 3 teams, with him being the main guy that they want to get the ball to feed Dovbyk. So Mudryk, 200-1 to lead the tournament in assists.
All right. Hopefully you guys got all that down. I think we left you with a million bets. Hopefully a few of them come through and we can have ourselves a profitable, at least futures portfolio. But we will be back ahead of each part of the group stage, and then we'll do 2 episodes for the third match of the group stage because of all the scheduling chaos. But just to give you a general idea of what that schedule will look like, we'll be recording again on June 10th. Looking ahead at all the first matches of the group stage. A week later for the second, then June 19th for the first half of group stage round 3, June 21st for group stage round 4, and so on and so forth as we get into the knockout stages. But we'll have every match of the Euros covered here. We're very happy to have Sam on board to do all that with BJ and myself. We're off to a great start here, a loaded portfolio for all of us as we get into the Euros. Should be a lot of fun, should be a lot of chaos. Thank you to you for listening. Please rate, review, and subscribe. Thank you to our producer, Noah. And of course, thank you to our sponsors, Bet365, for providing the odds for this and every episode of Wondergoal. For BJ and Sam, I'm Michael. Best of luck putting together all your futures for Euro 2024, and we'll see you again soon.